Hello everyone, welcome to Critical Conversations. I'm your host, Chris Hussain.
And I am Shanta Sipasan.
Shanta, is this a compass first, a Critical Conversations first? Guys, we are actually live, like really live. Like you can comment and we can read your comments today, right? So I want to speak about our interview that we're going to have in the second segment before we get into hot topics. So you all know segment one, we usually do hot topics, like a week in review sort of thing. And then in the second segment, we usually have interviews. And I think this is our first in Trinidad and Tobago where we have youth parliamentarians coming together to have a conversation about the country, national affairs. And I want to big them up a little bit.
And you could perceive it as Trinidad versus Tobago because these youths are from Tobago, as you said, former regional and national youth parliamentarians, together with their Tobago youth.
They did the Tobago Youth Assembly as well. So that is the THA's version, like how we have National Youth Parliament, they also have, and they did really well. Shanta, I know in 2018 we did the National Youth Parliament.
Correct. You were Youth Minister of National Security.
You would have been the Youth Minister of Education. And guys, I remembered looking at you debate because we were on the same bench. But but because we were on the same bench, I couldn't see you all the way down.
Right.
So there's a monitor and I was looking at the monitor. And I mean, wow. You were impressive.
Well, I take it my creditor, but I was third best debater.
She did.
Yeah. She did.
And you also would have been in the Youth Parliament alumni, which was 2021, I believe.
21, yes.
You were the Minister of
Public Administration.
You moved the motion. It was about digital transformation.
Yes.
I think I was Trade and Industry. I was Minister of Trade and Industry.
And interesting, this is where we met Ajay.
He was our Prime Minister.
He was Prime Minister. And funny enough, we said Ajay reminds us he is little Rowley.
In a good way. In a great way, actually.
We saw that Tobago persona come out from him,
Even Johnny, who she would not have been in our year, I think she was 2022, but she won, I think, best debater in that year, and I mean she's exceptional. Right. She's great. She has served in the youth advocacy space, and I'm so excited for us because we're now a part of the alumni, the Youth Parliament alumni, for us to sit down and have a conversation about the country that is not surface.
Right.
We're gonna go, so it might be a little controversial, I'm giving you a little warning. But Shanta, so we're going to get into our topics. Iowa George put out a song. Some of you all would have heard it before. It's called Happy People, right? And well, he got a little backlash because in the first half, well, not the first half, but the intro in the song, he would have used the national anthem. I see even the Prime Minister commented on it. What do you think?
Well, I think our national anthem is something that we should hold very close to us. And I mean, we grow up knowing, we learn this in school at a very young age, that you stand at attention. And for him to include it into a soca song, I think it's unacceptable, it's disrespectful, and he just should not have done it.
But he re-released this song, which showed me that he understood very much the reaction that he got, because he got a lot of backlash for this.
Gosh, but Mr. Iowa George is in this industry too long. You should have known better. Did he go back to Standard 1 Social Studies?
Oh Lord.
they gave him a class on it?
I don't know. I feel as though, I don't think he was, okay. So there are renditions, just like the US national anthem. There are renditions of several songs and those kind of things. I am open to hearing renditions of the national anthem. I am. I don't know if I liked the rendition. I'm just being honest, guys. This is my opinion. However, he re-released Happy People, I think today. And I like it. without the anthem, and I like it.
I mean, whatever you put on the internet is there to stay. So whether we like it or not, the song was put out there and he should have known better.
But he responded though. So what I view this as not he didn't double down. He understood that his constituency, his people, as he creates his art for us, for Trinbagonians to listen to. And if we say, well, we don't really like this, I think that was a good moment to see someone in Trinidad and Tobago say, well, that's alright, I will give all a little different. And I found that was really nice. Good job. Good job, Iowa. Good job.
We running out of creativity or something?
No, Shanta. The man, he didn't go out there and say, oh, they're intellectually lazy. He didn't say that. Right?
In modern Trinidad and Tobago.
In modern Trinidad and Tobago, all of them will be open. He did not say that, right? So I appreciate that. It's funny that last week we had a very interesting conversation. We had attorney at law, the very, very dynamic, and I think one of our young attorneys. And we had
attorneys in this country, Mr. Kyle Takal Singh.
And he assisted us in navigating the conversation, but we got some backlash, Good, we got a lot of support. I want to say that last week we had the most viewed critical conversations in our entire 3 seasons so far. So I want to thank everyone for viewing us, staying with us through everything. I enjoy the comments. We got some emails as well, a few, but still thank you. We're grateful and we are looking to build out the show to create more safe spaces to have critical conversations. So you have an opinion, share it with us, and even if you think we disagree, we want to have a conversation, not bacchanal conversation, a real one. But some person said the country is failing. I mean, you have crime out of hand. You have the business sector, because crime is a factor there. You have school violence. You have all of these issues with border security. You have so many different areas in this country. We could go to the agriculture sector, right? So many different areas. But why are they talking about Kamala and Shirley Lady Party? Why are they doing that? And that was a response. The response was, the PNM so wicked, so bad, so incompetent. Why is he focused on the UNC?
I mean, the PNM is so wicked and bad and incompetent, but yet they were able to win the last general election. They were still able to at least come parallel at the local government election. So
I want to shout out some persons looking on right now. I see Jermaine. I want to shout out Jermaine. Jermaine has been a pillar for the Compass Foundation, and we are very grateful. I know some of the activities that we do, and well, you all will follow our humanitarian work. Jermaine, she would have assisted in a big way, and I really want to shout you out, Jermaine. Jermaine would have offered some of our offices in San Fernando when we had a toy drive last year, and we're very grateful. I want to just shout out, I don't know if she's looking right now, but also Dolores, also,
one of our loyal supporters.
Also Adam, who I think is one of those persons who really assisted us. And as I reflect on that, and we're coming into Christmas time, last year you all assisted us in a big way with our toy drive. I see Ajay also locked on, and he's ready for his interview, which is coming up next. So we're looking forward to having a conversation with you, Ajay. But let's just get back to this now. You see, I think that persons understand, and if you speak to young professionals, you speak to persons from the business sector, you speak to persons from throughout the length and breadth of Trinidad and Tobago, we can agree that party colors and loyalty and all of that aside, we could agree that this version of the PNM has, in my view, their policies have not been effective, right? So you test based on how effective and your performance, right? I am not saying that they did nothing, But I am saying that where we are today, I think we were in better places about 10 years ago. Right? So, and I think that's a fair argument to make. But the reality is, in order to, remove them, if as a country we understand that this is not the kind of direction we would like to go in this country, right? We want to go in a different direction. We want to look at renewable energy. We want to look at the non-energy sector. We want to look at the manufacturing, so expanding that. We want to have all of these different technology, digitization, how we integrate AI and those kind of things. Then when we understand fundamentally that the other political vehicle is the UNC, but the reality, this is where we have to balance, our optimism with our realism, is that the opposition, under the leadership of its current political leader and national executive, has been in opposition come 2025 for a decade, for 10 years. And we are not saying the parties are losing party and they are losers. That is not what we are saying. What I want to say is this, is that a political organization is not a pressure group. That is for the Compass Foundation to do. That is for the NGOs to do. That is for all of those small NGOs, big, small, medium, whatever, to put pressure. As citizens, we must. We operate in a democracy and that's how it works. But as a political party vying to get into government, you are not that. And you must be able to reaffirm the confidence in what you have been offering. And well, we could tell that for 10 years, and we looked at 2015 and 2020, unfortunately, the United National Congress has not been able to become the government. And so it is not a question of who is anti-Kamla or who is anti-UNC or pro-PNM. It is actually a question of preparing for a general election. And in that you have conversations?
Yeah, we are speaking about who is the best batsman to go out there and win the match.
I would even say this. In 2009, Mrs. Prasad Bisesa, I think in that time she was the best batsman.
Right.
Some would say that she came from NER, because she contested, I believe, the 1991 election against UNC. I'm not sure, so I'm subjected to be corrected. But she would have gone up against the UNC. She came over under Mr. Pandey when he formed the UNC. And some may say, well, she's not UNC enough or something like that. But you're right. In 2009, she was the best batsman. And
she took us into government, and we could say that was one of the best government this country has ever seen.
I agree. And I think our generation, we also would have been able to benefit from it, like the laptop program.
The laptops, the school, the amount of schools they built, roads, hospitals, the Cooper Children Hospital, infrastructure.
UB and DB.
The quality of life was different. Now, we came from one of the best governments. We saw the performance of that government. But the question is, after being in opposition for 10 years, why is that?
I could give you my opinion, and it might not be what people want to hear or like to hear, but it is the question of leadership. Unfortunately, there are persons who would have left the UNC. Even as we could look at the PRO of the UNC.
It's interesting. I was listening to Dr. Munila last night. They had a pavement report in Lengua, and he did speak on that persons come in, go in, they come, they left, they come back.
Is he speaking about Dr. Migu?
Well, there's a lot of persons that we could speak about. The political leader currently, she came from the NAR, way back before we were born. I think the then PNM MP for Tunapuna, Hector McLean. He came over.
He was a speaker.
He was a speaker.
Correct.
We have seen where UNC persons left. They went to the COP Ganga Singh, Anand Ramlogan, and they came back to the UNC. Even the mayor of Shoguanas, he would have been ILP, came to the UNC. So this is not something new that occurs. But it's interesting that Dr. Munilal said that because, you might have the PNM, this is the PNM's way of infiltrating the party. And
the only person I could think of is...
I would agree with what he had to say, because you had someone who protested with the PNM in 2015 against the then performing People's Partnership UNC-led government.
And I think he was the leader of the House at that time. So he was one of our senior members in the government of Kamla Pasambi Sasa.
And I must agree with him in that maybe this could be the PNM infiltrating, because how can you protest with the PNM back in 2015 and now you are our PRO?
And I want to tell us who is UNC and who not UNC, the PRO.
But these issues, the UNC really needs to take stock and fix these issues.
Well, let us give some credit. We must give credit where credit is due. The political leader in the Monday night, and we said we would cover the Monday night forum. There was no Monday night forum. There was a Monday night cottage. And so she slated her DPLs. She slated a chairman, and she spoke at a cottage meeting. And of course, she would have said that the party has been busy. She said that they're preparing for elections. I think we anticipated some of these things last week. Let's be honest. We're not. I'm not a seer man. Is a seer woman? I just want to know, because I feel like we spoke about it. But she said something important, right? She said that they're opening nominations.
Right, for general election.
I agree with it, by the way.
I agree with it, because we don't want to see candidates hitting the ground 3 weeks before the general election is due. But my issue is, and it goes back to what Dr. Munilal is saying, and I must agree with him in that, who knows, the PNM is putting persons to infiltrate our party. And I think we need to fix these issues, and one way of fixing it is through probably a NATEX election. We know the NATEX election is due. You have open nominations, and the NATEX make up your screening committee. So we need to ensure that those who file nominations are not persons infiltrating to, I don't know,
mash it up. But Shanta, file nominations, and you said NATEX, right? I think we need to explain, because some persons don't know. Dr. Mullah is right. The political leader's term actually is for 3 years, which means in 2025 her tenure would be up and there would be an election, right? But the national executive, which would include your DPLs, your chairman, vice chairman, and those positions, that is 2 years of a term, and so that election is actually due next year. So I agree with you. I want to agree with you that you have to have a good NATEX to clinically evaluate what's the best team, who's the best batsman, who's the captain of the team, and those kind of things that we need to put in place. I think opening nominations isn't bad. My fear
No, it could also be perceived, I mean, everybody will have their opinion, and I've been hearing, opinions that, who knows, maybe this is the political leader's way of intimidating the current MPs. So if you go against me, well, look, I have a lineup of batsmen waiting to replace you.
I wanna, because we actually live, guys, like we're reading your comments here. I'm seeing we have some persons on. I'm seeing Trini to the bone. We want to say a very good night to you. I know Trini would have been one of our longest supporters on the Campus Foundation. When we were on the Zoom platform, every night he would call in. I don't know if we have the time for the calls, but I would have liked to get his opinion on this tonight. I see we have our very beautiful and eloquent and popular PRO, Mrs. Narmada Ramjit Singh. I think you all would have known her. She made a lot of national headlines, and you saw the morning brew, because I saw the morning brew.
Yes,
did you see?
She was excellent.
I mean, what more you want, right?
Beauty, brains, elegance.
Everything, right? I see Jermaine. I told you good night already. But so we're going to get back to the conversation. I know we're a little chaotic, but I want to make sure everyone. I see some of the MPs from the UNC. You all have joined us as well. So I want to say a very good night to all of you all. But so NATEX is due. And I think it's important that you have the and I think the UNC will have the NATEX election. I have confidence in the UNC that they will. Because why is it important? It is important because you don't have a Tobago coordinator. He has gone to the PNM.
Right.
I don't know if this is the official UTAM chairman. I don't know if that was an election. I assume it was an appointment as an interim youth leader, because Kavish would have been compromised, if that is the word you want to use.
And I think we need to have all these arms of the party operated before we can go into a general election.
And have an opinion about it. You're, as members of an organization, whether you're PNM, whether you're UNC, whether you're whatever. I see now there's a Hope Party. I also noticed across the pond we're seeing the TPP. You ought to, as members in a modern democracy, in modern Trinidad and Tobago, engage in the conversation. And so we must have those lively debates about these particular things.
What's interesting, I also heard Dr. Munilal mention that there's no vacancy for political leader.
Well, he's right in that it is constitutionally due for 2025, so he's actually right.
Right.
Yeah, he's actually right. But in that same breath, though, I must say that there's an appraisal for the political leader. Right now, the political leader of the UNC is Kamla Prasad Bisasa. And when we speak about 10 years of opposition, we speak about low voter turnout and those things. This is not an attack on her, because you know the apologists will say all that bad talking the leader, all that bad talking Kamla, all that bad talking the party. It is
the campus is now anti-UNC.
Shut them down. Don't watch the show.
The PNM probably buy them or we didn't get no buyouts.
Right? No.
We are just looking for
young people. The
best option to take us into a victory in 2025.
And let's have the conversation, because the reality is, in this debate, you can come out at the end of the debate and say, you know what? After this evaluation, Kamla is the best person.
Correct.
You can come out of that debate and say, you know what? Rudal Munilal is the best person. You can come out of that debate and say, Rushton Parry is the best person. You can come out of that and say Anita Haynes is the best person. You can say Saddam, and that's about, the discussion is not to duck hide who's supporting, who not supporting, who cooing, who and that kind of thing. It's not that. It's preparing. You want to win, right? Again, persons understand in this country very well that this version of the PNM, and this is constructive criticism, that we have had 2 terms, and quite frankly, I, as a young professional, I'm not that impressed.
And when we look at the voter turnout, we saw it for 2020 general election, we saw it for the local election. Every time it's going down, and our leaders are not taking stock. Even on the PNM side, why is there a majority of persons? It's not a small number. Why are they not participating in the election process?
You know, the PNM, let's talk about the PNM for a minute here. Even internally in the PNM, why are not the younger persons, the competent persons, the persons who have a track record? Because the reality is there are persons there. Why are they not stepping up and saying, listen, we disagree with how this cabinet is being run. And there are ministers in that cabinet that knows very well that this ego work.
Well, there's something that is keeping, when we see the elections come around, we saw it in 2015. Dr. Rowley was victorious in 2020 as well. So what is keeping Rowley in government? And the second thing, the PNM is a cult. Kyle mentioned it last week, and you know, everyone is stifled there. It's do as I say.
It comes across that way. It comes across that way. But is the UNC a cult? Because you're saying the PNM is a cult. And I'm saying to you that if you cannot have a conversation about leadership, whether it be political leader, whether it be NATEX, whether it be about an MP being there, not there, whatever, is the UNC a cult?
I don't think the UNC is a cult. I mean, the UNC has their consultations. We see it for RIC, we see the budget, this new crime talk. So I think they are about conversation. And if they feel, or if the ground is saying, well, leadership is a conversation, we'll have the conversation.
There are persons, though, I must say, that, I mean, we spoke about the whole Ian Allen thing, that there are potential persons who might be putting up their hand, right? It is alleged it might be.
And what is wrong with that? It's a democracy.
That's true. That is true. What is wrong with that? Because Kamala did it, not so?
Because if we can't do it, then we could call ourselves a cult.
And Kamala put up her hand.
Right.
And look what she was able to do. Create history as being the first female Hindu Baptist Indian Prime Minister. I mean, that was a moment.
That ran one of the best governments
and it was a coalition
has ever seen.
It was a coalition. I remember where I was 10 years old. I was 10 years old, and I remember in my home, because I live San Fernando West, that, so you know, everybody campaigning. So you get your PNM cup. We had a COP cup because the MP was Carolyn Steeples at Dayton. And I remembered when she became the MP, because I met her. I don't know if she'd remember this, but I met her. I was a little boy. And she gave me the cup. I still have the cup. I still drink out of the cup. I drink out the cup. And you're right, it was one of the best. But you see, here's the thing, are we stuck in the past? Because
let me share my experience with you, Chris. I remembered in 2010, I was in Form 2, I think, at Lakshmi Girls, and Kamala came to Lakshmi Girls. That was the first school she distributed laptops to. And I remembered at 2:30, when that bell rings, I am ready to go home. But we heard the Prime Minister coming. I called my mother and I told my mother, "Here, what? Kamala coming to school, come and pick me up. I'll call you when I finish."
Wait, you had phone, you're hiding that phone in the house. Or you see the I have to call, we need to go to Lakshmi Girls disciplinary committee.
I had a Me Too phone, we were allowed that. And I was so excited to see that first female Prime Minister come. And when I look at her track record, first Attorney General, first female Prime Minister, where is she going next? Maybe first
maybe she could be the first president, who knows? But
no, we had Paula and Christine, but a first UNC president?
Yeah, because
if the PNM could do it, why we can't do it?
Correct. What I would say, however, is that as much as I enjoy that, and I have an appreciation for her track record then, and I have an appreciation for her political attractiveness then, I also have to live in the reality today where we must have a conversation.
Yeah.
And it is about being able to strike that balance between, we enjoy that, we love that. We have a tabanka over, a political tabanka from those moments. But we're in 2023. We are over a decade later. And that is why we can have a conversation. You said anyone would have a conversation?
Nothing is wrong with the conversation.
I'm the Compass president, by the way. I have no problem if all they have a conversation about if you want to be the president. Come and be it. I don't mind. Right? Right? So I think that this is some interesting developments, and
I mean, leadership is measured by performance, and if you can go a decade into opposition, it really speaks. Why is it that we are reaching the finish line so close, but yet we are not able to cross?
I think it's a young professionals vote, right? We grew up. Remember when the UNC and the People's Partnership would have been in government? We were kids. We grew up. And one of the things that exists now is technology. One of the things that exists now is, well, not just, and let me get into technology, is that what you say is very permanent, and we see it in real time. Like right now, like I am seeing you all, I am seeing Attorney Taklal saying, I'm seeing Devon Ruplal, I'm seeing that you said we didn't beat the PNM at their weakest, and we having a conversation about that, right? Seeing Jermaine boy, going to tongue in the comments, girl. But it is, what you say is very permanent, and we get it in real time.
Yeah.
And we make more informed decisions. And also, you know that something we don't like is race-baiting politics, right? You cannot go and make a mockery of someone's name because it's of Indian descent. And then you also cannot go and tell someone else, well, your name is from a slave master.
Yeah.
That is something we, our generation, the way we grew up, we are not attracted to that kind of conversation, that mobile politics. We're not really into it, you know? So, like even the Prime Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister, some of the things he said during the pandemic on those press conferences, I mean, no wonder we saw such a low voter turnout. But I will say this, and I'm not being ageist, there's an age group that still love that, you know, and want that, you know, and like that, you know, and say, yeah, get them more. Get them. This is about national development. This is about making the country better. Because the reality is, after you all have your stint, whether it's 5 years, if you get so much, or if you don't get at all, 5 years, 10 years from now, I will be in my 30s. You would be your 30s, right? What will be left of Trinidad and Tobago?
And that is something that we cannot be selfish about. We have to think about our young people. We always hear our politicians talking about the youth, the future. When we will be part of the discussion? When we reach in our 50s?
Apparently. So don't interfere with Rowley, the man party, and don't talk about you and the lady party. Mind your business, hush your mouth. Right? That is, I mean, you can't tell us that. Like that is not going to work. Come on.
And you know, globally we are seeing, we have Mia Motley in Barbados. Look at Guyana, President Irfan Ali. In the UK, Vivek Ramaswamy. So many young leaders in Jamaica, Andrew Holness, and Tobago, our chief sec.
Not just a chief sec, you know, even a minority leader.
Yeah.
Calvin, he's a young man.
Yeah, and I mean, our next discussion with our Tobago youth, they would tell us how much the youth vote impacts Tobago.
Think, you know what I think? I think let's ask them about the general election and how they view it.
Yeah.
Because you see, Tobago is an interesting factor. Because right now, we know the PNM is win or lose, we together. We are forming no coalition thing. We are doing that. No negotiation. We're not really into that. But there's the TPP, there's the PDP over there. There are other parties as well. And they're going to have to have a conversation with Trinidad. I'm going to ask one of them who they think they should best have this conversation with.
Well, the reality is the only party willing to hear the conversation is the UNC. But is the UNC going to use the Tobago folly and to win an election?
No, but you say that. But then when we look at the voter turnout, I mean, I don't know if I could say that. I mean, the other option by default is the UNC. That is correct. Is it that? Is it that UNC comes across, I'm not saying it is this way, but comes across as, well, we don't mind being default, not own.
Yeah.
That might be a perception, I don't know.
So the PNM government have to be so worse off for we to win an election. 10 years in opposition, but the PNM bad. So now we could win.
I'm reading a comment here from a UNC Lifetime member in the chat. They're saying, and I will always say and continue to say, she has been one of the best PMs and she made the people happy. But with everything, we have to move on. We need to go back into government. I think this person alluding to have the conversation. I think they're probably alluding to something else. But this is why we have critical conversations, guys. We have, and I think this is what young persons, our constituency of young professionals, this is what we want to be engaged in. And it's not just a talk shop, it's meaningful discussion. And so don't throw sand in our eyes and those kind of things. Come on now. Let's have a real conversation, a critical conversation. I want to leave it here for today, right? And I want to get into that interview. I know they are waiting patiently. So stay with us. We'll be back with more. Welcome back to Critical Conversations. And so, Shanta, I am particularly very excited to engage in this conversation, Next Gen Perspectives. Of course, we are joined by two other former national and regional youth parliamentarians. I also know that they were also youth assemblymen, Ms. Jane Campbell and RJ Allen. And I want to say that I think this is the first time that we I believe we are
youth parliamentarians. Yes, I think this is the first time we have a segment like this where we bring former youth parliamentarians to have a discussion with us.
And what I like particularly about this is, and we'll get into it in the interview, is that they're also from Tobago. So we're having a very engaging national discussion, which I think we ought to be engaging in. So I want to welcome you all, guys. How you all going?
Welcome.
Welcome, Johnny. Welcome, Ajay.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah, hi again. It's nice interacting with you guys again. Especially Chris and Shanta. I miss you guys. Look how Shanta get rosy. And it's indeed a pleasure to be here with Johnny as well. One of our Tobago who I'm very proud of, who went to the national level and stamped a mark at the national level. So I'm very proud of her as well.
Yes. Yeah. And Ajay, you know, you are no stranger to critical conversations and the Compass Foundation. We have had many programs with you in the past, so I guess this time we could ask you some questions and you don't have to feel shy to answer.
and I know, I will tell you something about Miss Johnny. I know that she is never shy as well. I think she won Best Debater Award in the National Youth Parliament when she would have participated. Yeah.
Okay, so it would be lovely because I also placed third Best Debater when I did my youth parliament, so we can have a little banter here this afternoon.
So to start us off, guys, so we're seeing that in our country, in Trinidad and Tobago, there's this surge in crime. And, well, of course, we would have seen that around the lockdowns and the pandemic. It would have gone down because it was almost like a state of emergency, right? And now we're hearing discussions about the potential crime talks. So we're seeing that 1 minute the government is saying, well, we're ready to rock and roll. This is our team. The Prime Minister will be there, he would not be there, or something like that. And then we're hearing the opposition saying, well, no, Gary should be there, right? Gary should be there. I don't think the opposition has named their team, though. I have not seen any team put forward. But of course, you're seeing this, it's like a political football at this point between the opposition and the government. And these big people, in my respectful view, should be able to be mature And I know that both the Prime Minister and the opposition leader, they are career politicians. They have been in this business for quite some time. And I'm thinking, put your political pride aside and engage. And I want to get the perspective, and I'll start with you, Johnny. What do you think about this whole crime talks charade almost at this point? How you feel as a young person? And of course, RJ, we'll take your perspective on this after Johnny's.
Well, first off, I would say that I'm not surprised to the least. I think that my expectations of politicians in Trinidad and Tobago are a bit low. For years, we have seen the somewhat tug of war between the government and the opposition. So I'm not at all surprised that we have this, what I would call an imbroglio, where, you know, the government is saying one thing and then the opposition comes in with a different perspective and is saying that it should be done in this particular way. We've seen it, we expect it. However, I think, especially coming out of COVID-19, where you had a lot of different perspectives and calls for both the government and the opposition to form some form of common ground and compromise in terms of how they are going to address issues of governance in the country. So, you know, as with other persons, I really would like to see, I want to say hope. I hope I'm not being too optimistic, but I really do look forward to some point the government and the opposition being able to come up with like a practical compromise in terms of how they are going to address various issues. With respect to Gary Griffith, I wouldn't touch too much on that because I know each has their own perspective on it, but in my humble view, he's no longer in the position that he once had. And once Mrs. Ola Christopher is there, I think she's really who matters, right? But it's not it's not that I'm going to negate the contribution that Mr. Gary Griffith can make, right? But I don't think it's necessarily mandatory as the opposition would have liked to propose. However, I do think it's up to the government and the opposition to find some form of commonality.
And RJ, give us your view on this.
Yeah, well, I think we should have gone back the stage of talking at this point in time. Because from the time you've seen 3 and 4 murders and then this sort of craziness, I think we should have gone past talk a very long time ago. We should have been at the stage where we actually seen action and seen things being done. And as a population, I think we should have feel safe. As it pertains to the back and forth and the political football that they make in crime, I sometimes want to believe that crime is an economic driver in Trinidad and Tobago. I somehow seems to believe that somebody who I don't know, I can't say, I don't have the information, but I sometimes want to believe that it's an economic driver. If you look at prisoner transport, look at the cost to house a prisoner, to feed a prisoner, somebody seems to be benefiting. CCTV cameras, you must have internet to supply or to keep that your CCTV cameras rolling and recording. So I'm like, somebody seems to be benefiting, that's why nobody seems to want to take crime serious. However, I would disagree with Janet though as it comes to Captain Griffith. A lot of us fail to realize that he is one of our most well-trained military officers in the country. And I think what we're missing was the population felt a lot safer having Mr. Griffith as commissioner, and I think he motivated a lot of the officers. So they felt the need to be a part of it. They felt more motivated, they felt more active, and we saw it in the way they operated. And we also saw the criminal elements was fearful of the one-shot, one-kill policy. So once you shoot behind the police, they will shoot to kill you. And I think that level of aggression and that straightforwardness is needed to create a kind of change or dent in the crime system.
You know, I take the point about Mr. Griffith and his accolades, but one of the things that stood out to me with this trying to push Mr. Griffith into this meeting is that he's not an official member of the opposition. when you look at the opposition bench, they have 19 MPs, they have 6 opposition senators, and I think most of them can engage in the conversation because at this point, we shouldn't be fighting over someone who's not officially a part of the opposition try to get into the meeting. But you know, I'm looking at something here, and you all are from Tobago, right? We saw Anita Haynes, the MP for Tabakit. We saw the MP for Tobago East, the minister in the ministry, with the office of the Prime Minister. And they were able to, they met very quickly to have discussions surrounding policies and areas. I think also MP Ragbear was a part of that meeting. We also looked on. I see the Chief Secretary, he's very interested in meeting with, I see there are some meetings he have with Mrs. Lewis. So I saw recently he did a conference or something like that with Mrs. Gopi Schoon. What I'm noticing is that the younger politicians are willing to engage in a real conversation in the best interest of the country. Would you all agree with that? That it can be maybe an age thing? I see you shake your head, RJ. What is your take on that?
Yeah, I think we fed up, plain and simple. We fed up at the political back and forth. We fed up at the banter. We fed up at the talk. I think we reached the stage where this generation, we no longer, yes, we like banter, we like politics, but focus on the issue. Debate one another. Let's sit down and have discussions, come to compromises, because we all know as human beings, we can't get what we want all the time, and you have to be willing to get. You have the gift to get something. And I think this younger generation of politicians, we grow to oppose or disagree, but not get personal, not get nasty, and deal with the root of the problem. So the chief is willing to meet clearly, and we see he is making the efforts. And even on the side of, let's say, more so the government administration, now we see they're having conversations. But what we need now is for it to go beyond the stage of conversations. We need to see actions coming up. We need to see policies. And we need to stop seeing the Trinidad versus Tobago style of politics. I think the days for that is far gone. We're gone beyond that. And let's continue to have these types of conversations where we can oppose each other and still sit down and have constructive conversations.
Ajay, as you say that, when we look at our leaders in Trinidad, you know, we see persons who are well into their 70s, and over across in Tobago, we have the Chief Secretary Farley, who's this young, vibrant leader. How does that make you feel as a young person?
I also want to say, before he answers that, it's not just him, you know, the administration, and even the minority leader, Calvin Morris. You're seeing these young persons engaging in debate. Even I know the minority council as well, relatively very young, the presiding officer, and we're seeing a different level of conversation happening across in Tobago. So after Ajay, I really want to get to Jani, because I know she must have an opinion on this. And yeah, so what do you think?
Yeah, I think part of the changes in Tobago is because of a younger style of leadership. I think it's because we have more youths involved in the governance process. I think what we also need to consider here is the transition process. Oftentimes, when you have young persons taking up leadership positions, you find the elders have a problem with the change. And I think that is where we need to focus on. Allow the transition to happen. It is going to be turbulent. Yes, some of the old methods of doing things are going to change. Some of the elders or the veterans in the public service are going to have problems with the decisions by this new administration. And I think Trinidad could take example and lead from what's happening in Tobago. Because I am of the view at some point in time, you're going to have younger leaders. And I think it's time for the older folks to prepare themselves for the transition.
Johnny, your take?
Yeah, worldwide we know that older persons occupy most governmental positions, right? So when you look at the dynamic of Tobago and you see where we have the evolution of a lot of young politicians, it is very heartwarming. It gives us hope as young persons that one day, even in the very near future, those of you, I said you very selectively. Those of you who aspire to become politicians, you may be able to attain your goals soon. In terms of the dynamic between Tobago and Trinidad, I think that it was more a cultural thing, and when you look at the outcome of the last THA election, I would go further to say that the present THA administration appealed to the younger population, and I would go even further to say that this contributed heavily to their victory. And you would often hear people say it's the young person's vote they mean, because they appealed to them. They seemed to be able to advocate and seem to be serious about developing the island in a way that the young person on the ground could have related to. I think that some of the politicians in Trinidad lack that vibe, that being palatable to the younger folks as well as the middle-aged folks. And I think it's just a lot of things to consider. Because, for example, when you look at the different party structures, so let's take the PNM and the UNC, they have their leaders there, and there's this whole notion of having experience to lead. There are even some persons in Tobago who say, even though we have a young chief sec, every mistake or every shortcoming that they make, they attribute it to his age and the age of the other assemblymen, and they say, these young people don't know how to run. So then now when you're looking at it on a national level, there are many who would still be of the belief that if young persons take up leadership positions within governance without prior experience, the country probably may be in shambles. There are a lot of persons who hold that perspective dear to their hearts. But I think as time evolves, when you in your different youth organizations or party groups, you have to be vocal. You have to be able to take advantage of all the different opportunities there are to put yourself out there, so that when you as a young person steps out into the political arena, it's not like a just coming out. Is that this is somebody who we constantly seeing, this is somebody who we know has been advocating, this is somebody we know can effect some form of change because they work with a community organization or any religious organization, political organization. We have seen you working, and we know that you're able to be efficient in any portfolio that you so desire, right? So I think as young persons, in order to kind of quell or combat that misconception that young people cannot lead, we need to take up space. And there are a lot of young persons who are taking up space, and I commend them, we commend them. But a lot more young persons need to kind of take off that coat of being timid and brace the world and make your presence known as a young person and get persons to believe in you. Because if we don't believe in ourselves, we can't expect the voting population to believe that we are able to do it. I think I really don't want to say the wrong country, but is it Grenada? You all could correct me. One of these countries has a very young prime minister. It's Grenada, right? So if we take pattern from Grenada, we see that young persons are capable of assuming these positions. So I look forward to something similar happening in Trinidad and Tobago, hopefully soon.
Johnny, you're
because I want to jump in here a little bit.
Yeah, no, it mine as well, because the dynamics in Tobago right now is very different to the dynamics in Trinidad, because we're seeing the younger style, the fresher style. And when we use the word younger, these persons are not that young in early 20s, we are saying they're not in their 70s and 80s. That's the difference, right? We're saying that because young in politics means 50 as well. That's when because that's what we compare to. But in Trinidad, we don't really experience that, and we know very well that what we say as young people, they try to fight down, they try to censor. I could even tell you all this. Our conversation and the way that we exist on critical conversations today there are meetings that are being had to even shut down this program because of what we have to say as young persons. And so I'm very happy that Jani even made that point, that young persons, we ought to take up space and make informed decisions and give a perspective, because the reality is, in a couple years, we ain't gonna be so young anymore.
Exactly.
Right? We ain't gonna be so young anymore. But I want to get to this now with young people taking up space in politics. We are seeing in Tobago that it is intentional. It is good intent politics. But we have a general election in 2 years, 20 months.
Less than 2 years. Yeah.
Right? And we know very well that our age group, I would consider us Gen Z, not even millennials, that we are at the forefront, yes, but we are at the forefront as tokens. Johnny, I want to get your perspective on that. I'm speaking about general election, because we are in agreement that in Tobago that it is not tokenism there, because they're good intent politics, and you actually see, you can see with the presiding officer, come down to the minority leader, you look at the chief sec, the secretary of education, the secretary of health, young people, tourism, minority councillor. So you see this young, it's very, very a good dynamic there when you think about it. You know, you have the not so young but the experience as well there.
And they blend in and mesh so well.
And they blend in and well. And they have debate. Whether you agree, disagree, the point is they engage in a productive conversation, which is what we're supposed to do. But general election is something a bit different. Johnny, what is your take on young persons being positioned as tokens by the major political parties to convince the population that their interest is in young persons?
Well, this is an issue that has been going on for years. I wouldn't totally dismiss that it isn't still happening in Tobago, because remember, those who are in the Tobago House of Assembly, they were elected, right? But there exists a lot of other young persons who are placed on different boards. Sometimes there are young persons who work with the Division of Youth Development, and you get a sense, because I've been in the youth development arena, I'm a little withdrawn now, but from my experience working there, you would get the whole idea of us coming and meet, and we're going to discuss all the issues affecting young people, or we're going to always include you in our discussions. We'd always include you in our consultations. But when it comes to the actual policies being put in place, I cannot say definitively, both with respect to the THA and on a national level, what the young people propose are being implemented. I think it's probably considered, but the extent of implementation to which we truly desire isn't being realized. And I'm honestly tired of saying that needs to change. I think we all want a future where the views of young persons are not just heard but acted upon, and the dynamic of both the national parliament and the THA is a bit discouraging, because I feel like, you know, when you get called to attend all these different programs and you get the impression that we want to get the voices of young people, or even in the party groups when, you know, you may have a youth speaker coming up and you put them out there, I don't feel as if it's from a genuine place, but it's always from a place of, okay, well, we have young people on our team, and it's very misleading. But on this flip side, I do see that we're making some progress. I won't lie, we're making some progress, but it's still not where it's supposed to be.
Now, you were telling me about, and I should develop the point on the party groups and youth arms and those kind of things. We were having a discussion
yeah,
right before the show.
Yeah, has the youth arm of the political parties fallen victim to the party politics? And that's an important question. What do you guys think?
RJ.
Yeah, before I proceed, I remember probably about 4 or 5 years ago, a political analyst stated, you will see a number of young people now jumping up behind the progressive democratic patriots then. And the statement was, in a couple years' time, that organization is going to become very dangerous politically. And I'm happy to see that we live to see the statements of that political analyst come to pass. So advice to the political organizations or parties, it's sometimes good to think futuristic and not just in the now. I generally is not involved in party politics. I don't like party politics. I would oftentimes say that on this program. But I think we need to move away from just the talk shop, as I keep saying. We need to get results oriented. If we are saying we want a youth-driven initiatives or youth-driven programs, I want to see somebody like Johnny being appointed as a counselor somewhere else and given a younger person the opportunity to actually take charge of something. Because she has shown her worth, she has climbed through the ranks. So why not move from the stage of just a board appointment or a secretarial appointment? Give her the actual responsibility to make the decisions. And I think we're going to see a difference in crime. We're going to see a difference in the attitude of our young people going forward. Because it would not just be because she make it, we make it, but we could now say whatever she discussed or the conversations we have now seen it into policy. We have now seen it being actually applied into the inner workings or into everyday life, and it trickle all the way back down to us. So I think what we need to begin to do is move away from this, as we're saying, party politics and party group, and young people have no say. And we need to realize that at the end of the day, the decisions they make is going to affect us. If they make bad financial decisions, it's me who ain't gonna enjoy my pension when I get old. So we need to move away from that format of because I in charge, I making a decision and whatever happens, them go fix it, to a position of it is going to affect us and we need to have a say.
I want to, because we're running out of time, I want to get to general election is in 2 years. And Johnny, I know that in Tobago there is this conversation about a Tobago party, right? You know, I know that the PDP was formed to be that. I know that now there's the TPP and there are other political parties there that really say here's what our party is seeking the interests of Tobagonians, which is good. Now, the reality is there are certain outcomes that can happen. You can have the PNM winning, and of course, well, if they win, they form the government. And they win seats in Tobago, etc. You can also have the TPP winning maybe a seat or two, but then they'd have to have some conversations with persons in Trinidad. What is your take on that in terms of the stability of conversations with Trinidadian politicians, particularly the PNM and the UNC?
I think looking forward to the Trinidad and Tobago general elections is something that is going to prove to be very interesting. I think the dynamic in Tobago has shifted. I grew up with the concept that Tobago is PNM, right? Well, I'm young, so from the time I was born up until the last THA election, it has been the People's National Movement, right? So coming out of that now, and we're seeing Tobago reverting to what they used to be, because if we really do assess the history of Tobago politics, Tobago was never really PNM, right? They were supporters of the C and NAR party. But going forward to the next general election specifically, I think that the PNM has a lot of ground to cover to be able to possibly win those 2 seats or even one. Some may say that Tobago has gone blue or green. I'm not sure. But I think it's a lot of things to consider. And I'm really uncertain as to what may be the outcome. But should the TPP be able to gain those 2 seats as they were able to, well, the PDP actually won the the seats before, but let's say hypothetically the TPP are able to win the twos for the general elections. I think that the dynamic between Tobago and Trinidad would be very much the same as it is now in terms of the communication that the central government and the THA has. We have seen instances where it appears to be as if they are meeting and coming to a consensus on issues affecting Tobago. So at one time you might hear the Prime Minister and the Chief Secretary having a meeting and it is cordial reportedly, but in other instances they are neck and neck. One is saying one thing and the other is saying the opposing thing, and so we the people not really sure what is happening, and it's like a sense of confusion taking place. And I think that if the PNM happens to win in Trinidad and the TPP wins in Tobago, I think that we'll have somewhat of the same thing taking place. Should it be the UNC? I'm honestly not sure. I'm really not sure. But in any case, what we want the cohesion. At the end of the day, we all have to work for the best interests of the country. So, we need to put aside the party roles, put aside self-interest, and work for both the betterment of Tobago, which needs a lot of development, and Trinidad, which has their own unique issues as well, coupled with all the national issues that we face.
RJ.
I'm still processing a lot of the information from Johnny because it's really good and it's really well put together. However, I think we all have known the PNM's win alone, lose alone attitude, and I believe the only way that would change is if the leadership change. I'm not too sure if within now and the next election there would be a leadership change in the PNM. So I really can't speak to that. However, when you look at Act number 37 of 1980, which was basically passed through the Parliament with under UNC-led government at the time, if we also look at Act number 40 of 1996, which is the current TH Act, it was also passed and favored heavily via UNC central government. So I am of the view, if the UNC takes Trinidad and wins Trinidad, I think they would be a lot more open to the conversation with the Tobago's People's Party. If they happen to win, we don't know what the results would look like, so don't hold us to it. But if that happens, I think they would be a little more open to conversations with the UNC. I also believe the Tobago's autonomy would get a push in my view from that perspective, because most of the Tobago's development in terms of autonomy and self-determination, usually the record show tends to lean a lot towards the UNC. So the UNC seems to be a lot more favorable in giving Tobago some level of autonomy, some level of ability to make their own decisions. So I am of the view, if it goes in that direction, it would be a little bit better. However, if the PNM takes the Tobago east and west, which at this current moment it seems or it appears to be highly unlikely, but we know the PNM has an excellent election day machinery. I mean, when they decide they put in their heads together to pound the ground, they coming out fine like chili baby. So if that's to happen as well, I think we're going to see some improvement generally because of that overarching change in the island. I think the PNM is now adjusting to the new style of politics in Tobago, the new way we think and the way we approach voting, and there's a possibility that they can also be very dangerous as well. And I think either ways the island would benefit after 2025.
Before the segment we're discussing leadership, and he mentioned leadership and changes in leadership. And I tend to agree with him in that the PNM is the party that says we either win together or we lose together, and that's their take on that, and you respect their take on it. But of course UNC has a different take in that they go into conversations, etc. But RJ, as it relates to leadership, what is your position on that as a Tobagonian, someone who, I want to say he was also when we did use Parliament, that was our Prime Minister. I want you also to know that Ajay was our Prime Minister. I was Minister of Trade. You were
Minister of Public Administration.
Ajay, what is your take on leadership? If you had to throw some names out there, throw some persons out there that you think, as a Tobagonian, a young man involved in politics, what would you say about that?
I mean, let me firstly say a lot of people usually see the current Prime Minister in me, fortunately or unfortunately. But I think I'm looking for somebody young. I'm looking like an Anita Haynes, possibly an Amy Brown. I'm thinking Shane John, possibly. I'm thinking possibly Chris as well. I mean, I want to see a complete shift in the system. I've been open. I am tired of these career politicians who build their whole life off of politics and can afford to live post politics without a government pension, in my perspective. I mean, our radical change. I like, in this point, I think we need a radical, complete shift. I mean, persons, Denisha Monroe, I want to say inside of the parliament. I mean, I'm looking like people like Chrisette Benjamin, Sydney Andrews. I mean, a complete radical wiping out of the existing system. In terms of leadership, I mean, the structures are there and I would respect the structures existing. But I think we reach an age where we no longer want parliamentarians who have a problem using a laptop or reading or doing a presentation from an iPad. I think we've gone past that phase right now. I mean, complete wipeout. I think we were MP Rushton Parry is one of the guys who I could also see taking over the new form of leadership. He has the experience, but in my view, he's willing to have conversations with the younger persons and create that shift. The Minister of Education is also a possibility as well. I mean, Edmund Dillon. These are guys who have experience, but you can see the youthfulness still in them. And they could become youths by association as well. So I'm not sure a lot of names there, but those are just some of the names that pops up in my head when we speak about national leadership and governance currently.
Well, we wanna leave it there for now. As I said, we're running out of time. I wanna thank both of you, Ajay and Jani, and we wanna have you all back. By the way, I know Jani, you are in Trinidad for school and those things, so maybe one day you could come down to the studio
and join us.
And join us a day. For some of you who don't know, Jani is an excellent presenter. She is an excellent presenter. So I want to leave it here for now. I want to thank you all for the discussion. We will continue to follow this. This is not just a once a month kind of conversation with young persons. As young people who are associated with this show, we are going to engage more young people. So stay with us. Thanks for staying with us at Critical Conversations. I think we had a very good discourse.
We had a good discussion, yes.
We had a very interesting conversation. You know, I like them. I like Jani and Ajay a lot, particularly in that they do not hold back. And we said this in the first segment that you want buy-in. We're going to be honest with you. So Shanta, I want to thank you as well. I want to thank you for hosting again with us at Critical Conversations. And I want you all to keep the conversation going. Leave a comment in the comment section. Like, follow us. We are on almost all social media platforms. And if you have an opinion as well, whether you think we would agree, disagree, we like that kind of thing, right? We like to engage in a critical conversation. So you let us know. You can email us. We have a WhatsApp group. We actually would have put the link on the our Facebook page, so you could go back and look at that. And we're excited to have you on this journey with us, and we look forward to having another critical conversation next week. Take care.